Dello Stritto.
Hey, Frank, my guest, Jerry Ross, I think his phone, the battery must have went sideways.
I know the feeling.
But we're talking to you. It's a Road to Bali this week. How are you doing, Frank?
I'm doing fine. God, we got some time tonight. So,
Hey, did you like those posters?
I like those posters, and I gave the doubles that you sent me to some kids, so you are very popular in Houston right now.
Houston. Me and Glenn Campbell. Wow. Yeah, the Mission Impossible are pretty artsy.
Yeah, they are. I wish the movie was that good. but
You didn't like it?
no, it was a good action movie. I'm being a bit facetious here.
Okay.
No, it was fine.
All right, good. So I'm glad the kids enjoy the posters.
Mm-hmm.
Road to Bali. Now, this is chock full of stars. And I'm going to throw a question to you out of left a curve.
Here, okay. Go ahead. Give me half it.
With songs like Chicago Style, Bing Crosby and Bob Hope, there's a bunch of songs here. Hootmon, Bing Crosby, and Bob Hope. If the movie's public domain, I wonder if the songs are.
Well, you're talking to the wrong guy. You got to talk to a lawyer. But I don't think like the movie. If I make a movie based on a novel and I don't copyright the movie, that doesn't throw the novel into the public domain.
You're right. You're right.
I would imagine there's no connection between them. But I don't know if anybody's going to sue you for singing Hootmon. Well, at least not over ownership. They might sue you for a public disturbance, but not over the ownership of it.
Hey, the merry-go-round, the merry-go-run-around, Bob Hope, Dorothy Lamour, and Bing Crosby singing. Now, that's pretty amazing.
Well, I think I haven't seen all the road movies, at least not, since I've been an adult. And Crosby always has a song in a movie, but I think they always sing in all of them. And Dorothy Lamour was, was a singer as well as an actress, so she has songs in all of them. So they're all, they're not too much to say they're musical comedies, but they're all comedies with music. And I think there's a lot of music in these things. They're pretty lighthearted stuff, so they brought in songs. And what's the point of having bring Crosby around if you're not going to have a song in there?
You got it.
And we forget, our generation, much more so the younger generation, forgets what a big star he was. And Clark Gable was never not number one box office star, but Bing Crosby was for 3 years straight. So he was a big star in the 30s, and in the 40s both he and Bob Hope were stars, but they were all, by the time they made Road to Bali, they were both incredibly wealthy men. They both owned baseball teams by then. And so this was, they were on the downside of their acting careers. Both their stars wouldn't be as bright in the 50s as they had been in the 40s. But they had other interests. They still made movies, and Road to Bali was one of them. I think they made the movie and released it through Paramount, which is why the contract is screwed up somehow, and it's shown into the public domain. So last week you had an MGM movie in the public domain, and there are precious few of those. And this week you have a Paramount movie in the public domain. That's precious few of those. So people may try to hide things from you, Joe, but you always find them and put them on the air.
Well, that's Anthony Gamari. We take our hats off to Anthony for doing that.
That's very good.
Anthony knows our audience, and he is reading the audience and getting the phone calls, so he's playing movies that people here at WinCam in Winchester want to see.
All right, that's great. Oh, let's say a few words on Road to Bali. Last week you had Love Laughs Today, Hardy, and I said that was the next to last, the almost last of the Andy Hardy movies, which were real popular during the war years. And then Love Laughs Today, Andy Hardy came out in 1947. That was the end of them for about 15 years. And the same with the road movies. These series were very popular during the war. You had all sorts of series. Sherlock, you had mystery series, Sherlock Holmes, etc. You had the horror movie series. Half of the Universal Frankenstein movies were made during the four war years. And then you had the road movies, which were popular during the war years. And Road to Bali was in 47. Road to Bali was in 52. Road to Rio was in 47. And then there was a 5-year gap between that and Road to Bali. And I haven't been able to find out how well Road to Bali did at the box office. I was able to find something online that said it was a hit that year, but I can't find anything to back it up. So I have to plead ignorance on that. They did not make a follow-up to it. The next Road movie was 10 years later. But again, even if it had been a success, if Bob Hope and Bing Crosby had other things to do, and again, they both had business interests and entertainment interests all over the place. By 1952, Bing Crosby was heavily invested in television production and making a lot of money out of it. So they might have said, no, one movie's enough. We don't need to do this again. So there was a 5-year gap. Again, the Road movies kind of, that kind of movie, that lighthearted, in-joking type of comedy wasn't as popular after the war as during it. So there was a 5-year gap. And then they came out with Road to Bali, and it seems like a throwback. There's a lot of in-jokes. There's a lot of jokes which people might get in 1952. They're going to have a hard time getting them now. There's a so-called cameo by Humphrey Bogart, but actually it's just a film clip of him from African Queen. There is a cameo by Jane Russell in there. And there's lots of references to other movies, etc. And both Hope and Crosby do something that you don't see anymore, and that is they start talking to the audience in the middle of a film. And when I was reading about this film to get ready for tonight, I came across a term I hadn't stumbled on in quite a few years, and that is the fourth wall. The fourth wall is the wall between the audience and the actors, between the audience and the movie. It's the screen. So the term fourth walling, or there's variants of it, is when the most famous ones, the most common ones were like Laurel and Hardy comedies. Laurel would do something particularly irritating to Hardy, and Hardy would just look at the audience and give them that, one of the fine mess look. And there's a lot of that in this movie where Hope starts talking to the audience. There's one scene where Bing Crosby talks to the audience. Bing Crosby gets ready to sing, and Bob Hope turns to the camera and says, "You guys, he's going to sing. You might as well go get your popcorn now." A lot of in-jokes like that. So I think in '52, this was probably a throwback to the '40s. You don't see that anymore, and it's not a comedy for everybody. It might be a few too many in-jokes for some people, but it's quite enjoyable. At the cast at last week's movie, 2 weeks ago, you showed a Bob Hope Dorothy Lamour movie, and Bing Crosby was actually in it, and that was my favorite brunette. And so this is in the same vein as that, a lot of Bob Hope type humor. Okay, Joe, I'm prepared to fill up the rest of the hour. Should I? Are you desperate for airtime here?
Hey, Frank, my previous guest is on the phone, so if you can keep talking about Road to Bali, it'd be great.
Okay, well, let's see. Road to Bali. Okay, 1952 is a tough time for the movie industry. When I was born in 1950, I think there were about 1 million television sets in the United States. And I think by 1952, there were 20 million televisions in the United States. So that shows you how television was growing. Theaters were closing down left and right. The only type of theater that was opening were the new drive-in movie theaters. I think 3,000 of them opened in the early 50s, but that was offset by like 12,000 movie theaters closing down. So, there's the big studios, the old-time big stars are kind of scrambling for identities. And we talked about that a bit last week. Mickey Rooney was, it was 1947, so television wasn't a factor yet, but he was back from the war. He was no longer quite the juvenile he was. He's 25, and he looks 25. So he's trying to act like 16. It didn't quite work in that movie. He was a fine actor, but he didn't quite pull off the youth did in that movie. And so they're grappling around. So sometimes when you look in the late 40s, particularly the early 50s, you see these movies that are kind of, it's not quite a throwback, but it's not 1950s. And if you didn't recognize styles or whatever, for instance, this movie's in Technicolor, which almost certainly puts in the early 50s. They had Technicolor in the 40s, and they had Technicolor in the 30s. In fact, they had it in the 20s, but you didn't see it very much. So you'd see this, okay, the Technicolor, I think, must be in the 50s, but you say, well, this is a movie looking for an era. They're kind of lost movies. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but they're hanging in there trying to find out where to fit into the new world. And it's up to your viewers whether it does or not.
Frank, you're totally amazing, man. You were able to carry that, and I was able to talk to my guest. He had a problem with his phone lines in his office.
Okay, so you're going to put him online? Should we say goodbye?
That'd be excellent job as usual, man.
Okay, I'll talk to you next week about Charlie Chaplin and Shoulder Arms, which to my knowledge is the first Chaplin film you're showing. So that's a monument right there.
Let's have fun with it. Thanks a lot, Frank.
Talk to you then. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. We're having fun.